The masked figure continued to hold on to Rose, telling her about Sayre's ability to locate who she wants to find, a useful skill to have. Even though she had finally found her, sadness lay in her eyes, as the demon's ability was not able to find the other person she wanted, no matter what she did. In order to control all the power that she acquired from the demon contract, the masked figure wondered if she really needed to walk through death's door completely, but the problem was, she is only a half-blood. And so, she decided that she needed to hurry and be able to control all of Sayre's power. As she talks to Rose, another person slowly approaches the set of red hair. With menacing red glowing eyes, he unleashes a heavy pressure, telling the demon not to move. Sayre immediately covers Rose, shocked that someone had been watching them, proving how skilled they were since she didn't even notice them approaching. Vicier appears out of the shadows, his bow readied and his arrow covered in bloodhound aura. He warns the demon, telling her to answer all of his questions and that if she moves a finger, death will be her reward. If she said a word that's not an answer to his question, death will be her reward as well. His first question had to do something with the smell. He noted that she smelled like both a human and a demon, which made him ask about what she was exactly. Sayre simply replies that she was both. Vicier's second question was about the woman, Rose. He knew her as Dantalion's underling, Geronto, someone he had killed, and someone who should be dead now. How was she alive, he asked. Sayre replies that Rose was not Dantalion's underling, and revealed the fact that he had stolen her from Sayre. Upon answering that, Vicier had reached his final question. He simply asked if the demon she was contracted with was named Sayre. With a similar glow in her eyes, the masked figure replied, "What if I say yes?" That was enough of an answer as the arrow reached close to her eye. Narrowly dodging the fast attack by tilting her head, Vicier's arrow simply gave her a haircut, before blowing everything away from behind her. With that answer, Vicier proclaimed that he was going to kill the demon known as Sayre. Seeing that this was turning into a battle, the masked figure tells Vicier to try it if he can, before summoning numerous skeletons from the ground with her magic circles. Amongst them, the skeletons of the children buried in the orphanage ground started to appear. The masked figure looked at them with concern, slowly regretting her decision to summon them as she didn't want to turn the children's corpses into skeletons. Vicier spots the smaller-sized skeletons, realizing what they were. He apologizes to them before firing a shot, blasting both the building and skeletons into pieces with the mere impact of his arrow. The two of them exited into the night sky. Vicier chases after the masked figure who was holding onto Rose. Against the bright moonlight, he tells her that she wasn't going to die a quick death. Sensing the danger, the masked figure tells Rose to hold on tight, casting a spell in her left hand as she holds her tightly against her body. Another explosion goes off as the three of them landed in the same area amongst the debris and smoke. Using herself as a shield for Rose, the masked figure was quick to recognize Vicier's skill with the bow, prompting her to ask him about his relationship with the Balak tribe. Vicier easily says that he was one of their hunters. His reply only brought anger to her as veins started to appear beneath her mask, saying that he must have been there on that night. Her rage could be seen in her spell as a giant dark ball of flame spun behind her, her eyes totally focused on Vicier, as she proclaimed that she was going to kill the barbarian in front of her. With the destructive fireball coming closer, Vicier dodges it with ease, slowly moving closer to the caster. As he does, he could feel it better now that he was near. The masked figure in his eyes was giving off the smell of a living human, but he wonders why. Since the rank of the 10 elite corpses were that of a demon king, then they didn't need to take over a human's corpse. As he was thinking about this, the attacks from her didn't end, as Vicier moved side to side, backwards and forward to dodge the incoming flame balls. He dodges the last of it with a backflip before landing on his feet, but the moment he makes contact with the ground, something shocking happens. Spikes appeared from beneath, catching him off guard as they penetrate straight through his body. Blood slowly dripped down along the spikes from Vicier's body. Seeing the state he was in, the masked figure continued to call him a lowly barbarian, claiming that he was talking big despite the state he was currently in. She couldn't help but smile over her victory. Soon enough, the spikes that penetrated his body simply broke into pieces, dropping onto the ground, shocking the masked figure as she was confused by what was going on right in front of eyes. There was no damage at all on Vikir's body, simply smoke arising from where the spikes had attacked. Seeing this, she simply thought that Vikir wasn't a human being. Taking the chance with her stunned state, Vicier unscrews Anubis, telling her that after a few of their clashes, he understood it now. The masked figure was a lot weaker compared to the other elite corpses because she was just a half-demon. Placing Anubis back, Vicier decided that there was no need for him to converse with her anymore. He declared her death with glowing red eyes underneath his own mask. But she wasn't going to accept this. The masked figure immediately slams her hand onto the ground, telling Vicier that the one going to die was him, a lowly barbarian. With her magic circle this time, she had summoned a gigantic monster called the Frankenstein Golem, also known as a giant lump of meat, a golem composed of materials that were once living, wasted lumps of meat clumped up together like mud to resemble the figure of a human. However, the original appearances of the lumps have not been preserved at all, a dirty and ominous existence that is fairly powerful. The horrifying golem lets out a fierce roar behind pulling back its fist, ready to kill the first thing it sees. As it does this, the masked figure starts to cast another spell behind it, gathering purple flames. It turns out that the golem was merely a distraction. The real attack was going to come from her fire magic. Seeing the incoming danger, our boy whips it out. Good old Beelzebub, and with a single swing of his arm, he easily cuts the Frankenstein golem in half, before it could even react. Even the masked figure was too stunned to speak upon witnessing this scene, but what caught her attention the most was the red aura, which she knew belonged to the Baskerville family. After seeing this, she quickly shouts at Vicier to wait, but our boy ignores her cries, preparing to strike once again, but this time, with the Baskerville 7th technique. The two forces clashed with one another, red versus purple, as the two attackers locked eyes with one another. Soon a bright red light engulfed the entire area they were in, blinding everything. As soon as the light and smoke were gone, a huge crater was seen where Vicier stood as the winner, while the masked figure kneeled down in front of him, defeated. Pieces of Vicier's clothes were destroyed, along with a piece of his mask, but other than that, there was no other injury. Looking at her current state, he tells her the reason she lost was because she was a half-human, but it seemed more like she had been hit with mana counterflow really badly as an aftereffect for failing to cast her spell. Looking back at their fight, it was after Vicier showed the red aura that the masked figure's focus became lost as she told him to wait. Her mask was now gone, as she whispered the words, "Don't leave me." Vicier couldn't understand it, so he asked her about the reason why she had struck a deal with a demon. As he raises Beelzebub into the air, ready to execute, he tells the half-human that all deaths have a story behind them. And so, Vicier executes his mission, his blade disappearing as he swings down. Before Vicier could deal the final blow, Rose jumps in to save Serre, using her own body as shield against the young bloodhound's devastating blow that's meant to kill. This was quite an unusual sight. Normally, the undead possess a strong jealousy for what they didn't have, giving them a temperament that makes them blindly bite and extort from the living. Though this doesn't apply if their master has a strong will and absolute control over them. If their master loses consciousness, the dead soldiers cannot be controlled, but Vicier could sense that something was different about Rose and her connection to the masked figure before him. Even without a hint of life in her eyes, Vicier could see that she was different. He wonders why she doesn't have the will to fight, like the corpse queen who was kneeling on the ground. As he was thinking about it, his lack of decision to end the fight with the Demon King was disrupted by a bright light in the background. Sounds of people were coming closer to where they were. Shouts could be heard as they spotted Vicier and the corpse queen. Amongst the voices of the guards, Vicier immediately turned around as he noticed Professor Sadie's voice among them. As soon as he turned around, Rose summoned a magic circle, surrounding herself and the corpse queen in a bright blue light. Sensing that, Vicier immediately turns back, ready to strike and end this once again. He aimed Beelzebub directly at the corpse queen's body, but before his blade could reach her, Rose saved the day once again, using her body a second time to absorb the attack from Vicier. She could only spit out blood as a result before disappearing in an instant, leaving Vicier alone and annoyed by what just happened. Just as he heard, Professor Sadie arrives in front of the guards, shouting at the Night Hound to reveal himself. But as soon as she surrounded the area where Vicier and the corpse queen were, no one could be seen, leaving everyone confused. Annoyed by the situation, Professor Sadie blamed it on the guard next to her, calling him a pig and kicking the poor soul into the crater, telling him that because he was so freaking slow, they had arrived too late to capture the Night Hound. After kicking him, her remaining eye catches something inside the crater. It was the mask that Vicier had worn as the Night Hound just a few seconds ago. Seeing the mask here, she realized that she had completely lost the chance to capture the Night Hound tonight. Not so far from the scene of the crime, a familiar red-eye puppy could be seen hurriedly dashing away and into the late night. Back at the newspaper club, the vice president shouts at the club members, informing them of the academy's big event that comes after the exams. The festive season is about to begin, ladies and gentlemen. And so, to build suspense, she slowly introduces this year's theme for the festive season, which is going to the haunted house. Dolores' eyes and face started to sparkle over her excitement, thinking that a haunted house sounded really fun. Sinclair was excited as well, knowing that it was going to be Halloween, and since it was after the exams, the students were finally free from any hardships, guaranteeing that the event was going to gain a lot of attention. Aside from the festive season itself, Tudor and Bianca were concerned about something that came along with it, and that was the Academy's festival tradition. PG knew what they were talking about, reminding everyone that the tradition was something that even the professors couldn't escape from. Sancho, the young warrior, was glad to hear about the tradition, as traditions were something he viewed as important. Seeing everyone's excitement gave the vice president even more hype as she brought out a blue and red box, telling the club members that they were going to draw lots right now to see who would dress up as what type of ghost. As everyone began discussing amongst themselves about the festive season, Vicier stood alone at the back, his mind in deep thought about last night's event. He knew that not killing the 8-corpse demon when she couldn't even use half her powers was a very big mistake. When he was fighting Andromalius, Vicier needed to receive the aid of the Baskerville family's knights in order to kill the demon, and when he was with the Saintess during the time he fought against Dantalion, he needed her help as well. Right now, Vicier doesn't know if he, a top-ranking graduator, can fight the 8th corpse by himself when she reaches full power. In the end, in order to hunt the demons one-on-one, he needed to completely learn the Baskervilles' incomplete 7th technique and reach the level of Swordmaster. The 10th technique, called Lurking Ambush, calls the 6th Fang and the 7th Fang ambush horizontal twin wisdom teeth. Weird, I know, but that's how it is. These techniques, one must understand the odd principle between the 6th and 7th techniques and be able to use the ultimate killing technique. The theory behind the 6th and 7th techniques is written in the swordsmanship book. In order to overcome the wall of the 6th technique, one must abandon all human emotions, and in order to learn the 7th technique, one must gain one's human emotions back. Vicier still didn't understand why one needs to recover the emotions they just abandoned. This needs a completely different approach compared to the entry-level graduator core training methods, where one learns how to kill their emotions and turn into bloodhounds. Thinking about all these weird techniques and training methods, Vicier started to wonder how Hugo became a swordmaster in his previous life. As Dolores' turn came up, she picks a piece of paper with something that surprises her. Her reaction was enough to catch Vicier's attention, drawing him back into the present. She looks at the paper in her hand closely, reading what it wrote, which was, Night Hound. The vice president was worried about it, knowing that the Night Hound had just attacked the Quo Vadis family's orphanage recently. So she immediately apologizes to the president. But to her surprise, Dolores replies that everything was fine and that she was going to dress up as the Night Hound for the festive season. She even blushes at the thought of it, holding the paper tightly on her chest to prevent anyone from taking her outfit. Soon after, the vice president excitedly goes over to Vikir, telling him that it was his turn to pick, especially since he was the center of attention. As he places his hand into the box, Vikir was glad to see everyone having fun with this activity, reminding him that they were still young kids. But upon reading the costume he had selected, a sense of dread overcame the young bloodhound regressor. He couldn't believe that he had actually picked this result. Seeing the shocking look on his face, the other members quickly wanted to know what it was Vikir had gotten, even pushing and pulling one another just to see his result. There was one thing Vicier completely forgot about in his past: the tradition during the Academy's festival. And now, we turn to the day of the festival itself. Everyone in the Academy were outside, on the streets filled with orange lights, tents and stalls as far as the eye could see. The crowd of citizens cheer loudly as they stood outside a certain pub stall. Tudor appears with long blonde hair while wearing an undead's armor. He happily swipes his long hair, flexing his hard abs while holding a rose in his mouth, asking a beautiful lady on whether she wanted to share poems and alcohol with him at Lukian's bar. Sancho appears with a hearty laugh dressed as a samurai. Holding a plate of food, he excitedly tells everyone to come to Lukian's bar. If they do, they would get one free serving of hot blood stew, a stew that can make a warrior's blood boil. Sinclair appears as a noble vampire, her sharp fangs visible as she compliments the crowd, telling them that they brighten up the bar, hoping for them to come as she'll be waiting for them. PG was dressed as a fairy. With an embarrassed look on his face, he nervously handed over a flyer, telling them to please take it. The students he was giving the flyer to were amazed. They couldn't believe that there was such a cute girl at their academy. Without realizing it, they wanted to get to know PG's name. But Bianca appears, dressed as Frankenstein's monster, and grabs a hold of both of them, reminding the students that they couldn't hit on their members, which prompts them to give an apology right away. As she held onto them, someone in a red dress walked by, catching her attention. That figure slowly approached the bar where a blonde character was serving dishes inside to the customers. It turns out to be President Dolores dressed as the Night Hound. Turning around to see who was calling her, the president's eyes seemed disappointed as she nervously looked down. It turns out that Professor Snape had arrived in their pub, dressed in a sexy red Chinese outfit. He remained unbothered by his current appearance, only asking Dolores about what she was wearing. He reminded her that even though it was a festival right now, she wondered how her costume would impact society, as he couldn't believe that she would actually impersonate the uncontrollable heinous criminal known as the Night Hound. But Dolores remains confident in her choice, telling the professor directly that she likes her costumes. Seeing no hesitation in her choice of words, Professor Snape lets it go, reminding her that she would have to bear the consequences of her actions before heading into the pub himself. He also reminded her that as her academic advisor, he had no authority to tell her what she can and can't wear, so she was free to do as she pleased. The other members of the club started to gather. They couldn't believe that Professor Snape was actually at their pub. PG adds on that during the festival, the professors would dress up and go to the stalls of their class and club to increase their profits. Seeing the students gathered outside, Snape was kind of upset, because if it weren't for the custom of the academy, then he wouldn't have come to the pub, as he thought that the prices of the dishes they served weren't even that great. After waiting for a couple of minutes, Dolores appears by his side, bringing him his order of fries and fried chicken. Looking at it presented on the table before his eyes, Snape could see that the quality of ingredients were poor, and that the dishes were made by someone who isn't certified in food and safety. The food was prepared poorly and they were full of MSG, as he guessed. Taking a bite of the blood stew, Snape had zero expectations, believing that he was going to taste trash. After eating and swallowing the first bite, the professor was in complete shock. His lipstick was even smudged all over his mouth. He couldn't believe that something this delicious would come from his own students. He savored each bite, describing each taste in his mouth. The exquisite smoky flavor and savory taste comes out from the meat when it's torn. The potatoes that come from the Morgue family's region releases a savory taste as they softly break apart. Snape was in complete bewilderment over how good the food was. He instantly stood up, demanding to know who it was that cooked the dishes before him, even accusing Dolores of recruiting an outside chef to help them. Despite his hard allegations and attitude, the president assures the professor that no outside help was present and that it was one of their members who was doing all the cooking. That person was someone Snape knew very well. As she pointed in a certain direction, we were brought to see somebody dressed like a witch, standing in front of a stove, cooking intensely with high heat. Wearing bright red lipstick, Vicier finally appears, dressed as a beautiful witch. He captures the heart and soul of everyone with his looks and cooking skills during the festive season.
Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.